Hi, I'm Aditya Bhatt. I'm an advocate, but I'm also a computer engineer. So we are going to have an excellent discussion about the technology in the field of law.
Welcome to the Podsquad, Padmavati University. One of the biggest things that we have noticed that's happening in the society is the rise in cyber crimes of multiple forms. How is the law aspect of this taking up? How is it evolving?
See, originally IT Act of 2002, that IT Act was framed by the government of India, passed in the parliament, and then very many amendments have taken place. But I would say that IT Act, which was originally passed, and then the way in which this IT sector has grown, I think there are so many amendments which are required. So that is one part that I would say. Second thing I would be saying is that apart from IT Act, now we have data protection law that is coming into force, and which is largely in line with the European standards of general data protection regulation. So data protection part, I believe government is taking care of it. One bill that came into parliament, but I believe it could not be passed, was geospatial data protection bills. For example, if we are on to Google Maps, then it's a data about India, streets and photographs and everything that is taken from the Indian space, but geography of India, but ultimately stored onto the servers of USA. So government wanted to have some bill where all the data is localized into India. The server and server farms are located into India, but it may be operated by the foreign firms. But I believe that bill is also yet to see the light of the day.
Because data protection as such is a massive challenge with the kind of engagement we have. So how does the law kind of ensure that happens? Because we've not really heard too many cases where data protection has been implemented or enforced. Of course, there are larger firms that really have made a big impact.
So data is a very subtle thing. We are not even aware, and our data, metadata, is being captured in day-to-day lives, and then that data is likely to be used in a positive way also and in a negative way also. For example, today we are seeing the advent of the technology, AI technology. So AI is trained on the user data. Many a times when we are logging on to Amazon, it shows the identical products that we were researching for. So it knows the type of product that you are looking for. Maybe it has done your personalization, categorization of your personality, your likings, dislikings, and based on that, what product you are likely to purchase on Amazon. Or for example, if you are on Google, so being a lawyer, I would be shown all the feeds which are pertaining to the legal sector, legal space. So somewhere it's good. It is easing my convenience. When I am on to Google, Google knows what kind of the content I am looking for.
Absolutely.
So that way, artificial intelligence is good, for which metadata is important. That the software, the server needs to know that this is a user who is a lawyer, and he is likely to be interested in a legal content more. Or when I am surfing from my home, then he is in a relaxed mode. He is likely to shop right now, and therefore we should be showing some feeds which is pertaining to his shopping interest. So that way, we do not know, and our data is being collected very much. So the law says that on the count of fairness, whenever you visit any site, you would be seeing many notifications that accept the cookie policy. What are those cookies? These cookies are that, see, we are collecting this data while you are surfing on our website. Last time you came onto our website, you search this items, and based on that, we are going to do some analysis and make your virtual persona onto our servers. But largely people are not aware about this kind of the data being collected. And surprisingly, if you notice, we say, okay, Google, and my mobile will start beeping that, okay, say further. So it's not only okay, Google, that my mobile listens. It listens everything. Even this conversation right now we are having is being noted by Google. So it has a tremendous impact on our lives. Today, because of all the images, all the photographs that we are storing onto the clouds, because of memory constraints, everything now will be fed into the servers, whichever, maybe Google, maybe Microsoft, or any other platform that you are using. But then what they are going to do? They say that we are not going to use your proprietary private information. Okay. But still, you are using that data for further image generation technologies, for AI generation technologies, AI image generation technologies that you are going to implement. So that way, how our data is being used and what kind of the technologies are being derived therefrom, that is something which one user should know consciously.
Agreed. Yeah, right. So on a personal level, so what are the ways I believe I can say no to my data being taken up. I mean, cookies, I do it consensually, right? I mean, that I'll give my consent and things happen.
Right.
What else? What are places where I should be careful? As a lawyer, where do you suggest? As an individual, where all I can be careful, where all I can be asking not to take my data, capture my data.
I think in today's world, it's almost impossible. Why I tell you, few years ago, there was one photograph of Mark Zuckerberg where he had put a sellotape on his front camera. He was using a laptop and there was a tape on the front camera.
This did a lot of viral. It went viral.
So why? Because even being a or CEO of a tech giant company, he was not sure whether his data is being transmitted somewhere into the world or not. So the best way to stay disconnected is to disconnect the internet. If you are using the internet, if you are using smart devices, you do not know where your data in what manner, how your data is being collected and how it is going to be utilized. And it is almost impossible that we can implement that part. But to be aware, like every a good company, those companies which are having their presence in Europe and which are the companies which are following the global standards, they are following the GDPR. So that is General Data Protection Regulations. So ultimately you have to go and read the terms and conditions. For example, if you are using WhatsApp or if you are using Google, then you have to go read their terms and conditions. You have to know what kind of the data they are collecting.
Which is quite an impossible task for
quite an impossible task. So to go off the grid, to not to use the internet is the only solution.
Interesting. So where does data protection sit? We are all consumers of very large courtroom dramas, especially the West, right? And we realize that this is not admissible as evidence, or X is not admissible, Y is not admissible, which also falls in the data protection category. There was a time when a lot of things happened on the offline space. With IT coming in, where do you think a lot of admissibility is being questioned, or data, you cannot pick up this data to find out where the person was? Is there something like that happens in our courts?
See, I tell all my clients that first of all, rather than worrying about your privacy, keep your timeline on. Timeline feature on your Google map on. Why I tell you? Sometimes one day one client came to me. He said that this is alleged, this is imputed onto me that when this crime took place, I was present at the crime scene. But in fact, I was not here. I was at this place. For example, the crime has taken place in Vadodara and he says that I was in Ahmedabad. So what is the way in which you can establish that I was not there in Vadodara but I was in Ahmedabad? So for that, you need to have your timeline. So see, from in the morning I was here, then I went there, then I went there. Now this is the data where if Google is knowing this data, I don't think that there is going to be any harm. But if you are put up in a trouble, then this important data can save you. So that is one aspect. The second aspect which you talked about was the admissibility of the data. So Original Evidence Act, because now it is replaced by this Bharatiya Sakshya Sanhita, but Original Evidence Act had section 65B. Section 65B was about the admissibility of the electronic evidence for which the person who is operating, who is in day-to-day in charge of the electronic system, had to certify that this data is the exact replica, physical replica of the digital data.
Interesting.
Now that certificate was required for that digital data to be admissible. I give you one example. For example, I want to show a chat between you and I. There are tools available on internet whereby I put your name, I use your profile pic, I upload, and then a fake dummy chat can be generated.
Absolutely.
And then I can put an allegation onto you that you threaten me with XYZ thing. Okay. So this is how, if somebody wants to knows to use the digital technology, he can very easily create the digital content.
Morphing pictures, deep fakes.
So we had a news item where Putin said that we are surrendering to the Ukrainian forces. So there was a deep fake of Putin that came into the picture. Now after that, that fight between Donald Trump and Zelensky, they were literally fighting in White House. That kind of a video came up. So to avoid manipulation of that data, you need to have a certification. Now Bharatiya Sakshya Sanhita has amended, or I would say they have improvised that section by saying that not only the content, not only the place where the data is originally stored, but if it is, for example, being live streamed. Then suppose if I am using Google, I am using Facebook or YouTube, then it is originating into my mobile. It is live streamed through the Google servers or Facebook server. So all other devices where the content is being live streamed, all those devices can be considered to be the source of primary information.
Interesting.
Because earlier what used to happen was, if I want to submit a video clip which is there on YouTube, then I would not be able to do so without the certification from Facebook.
Agreed.
But now with certain corollaries, certain terms and conditions being incorporated into the section, now we can use that data. So that is how this digital data is, the evidentiary value of digital data is being incorporated into the Sakshya Sanhita.
So, taking a step behind, so how did you get into this? I mean, as a lawyer, when you were doing your degrees, was IT a part of this experience? Was IT part of the education space?
Well, I am a computer engineer and thereafter a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Are you one of the rare species?
maybe. Yeah,
Interesting.
because I have done my computer engineering.
Okay.
One of the very reputed colleges of Gujarat, that is IIT Engineering College.
Nice.
So I have done that. I had great opportunities probably to go to Silicon Valley and
Absolutely.
settle somewhere in a well-reputed multinational firm. But
Lots of alumni are doing that. Yes, I've done that. True.
so, but from the beginning, I was more interested in something that is people-facing.
Interesting.
And I didn't want that my entire life is just spent in front of a screen. Because being a computer engineer, what you have to do is you have to do the coding and you have to improvise your coding. So that is something that I never wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that's what I was seeing. Looking for some profession where I get to do something that is people facing. And that is how I came into the field of advocacy. Wanted to do something for the society. So very wide reading, wide areas of interest. And then ultimately I am into the field of advocacy.
Great. But within advocacy also, I mean, IT, there must have been a very specialization. I mean, do colleges offer this these days? I mean,
See, this law in India is evolving. Because there are so many aspects of technology, information technology and law, they are evolving, right? So, as I say that IT Act of India, Information Technology Act of India is not that well evolved framework of law as far as the cyberspace is concerned. Because, for example, let's say, take an example of hacking. So there are thousands of ways in which hacking could be done.
absolutely.
Number two, it is, for example, denial of service attack, distributed denial of service attack, salami slicing. There are many methods in which hacking could be done.
Absolutely.
Now, the definition of hacking is so vague that whatever you do, maybe with some extended interpretation, can be said to be hacking. Now, the legislatures, those who are drafting the legislation, they have not done all this technical analysis, and based on which this kind of the detailed understanding of this. But I'm just talking
Interesting.
one definition of hacking, very poorly drafted.
Yes. Yes.
So it needs to take the inputs from the industry experts. And number two, our legal space is not very much filled up with the technical experts.
Agreed.
And because information technology and I believe all the technological fields are evolving, we need lawyers who have done some specialization in the technology field, which is not there.
And you think that's a huge opportunity for colleges like Karnataka University School of Law?
But at the same time, yes, that's a huge opportunity. But I would say that for that, the enforcement regime has to improve. Because, for example, patent and copyrights. So, unless there are experts from the administrative side who can enforce the regime of copyrights or say patent or say design rights, unless that regime is there, you cannot do anything.
Yeah, just identifying a problem is not important.
Exactly.
Enforcing it and solving it.
For example, I would tell you in IT Act only, somebody has stolen your code and made a replica of your software. You can write to the Secretary of Ministry of Information and Technology and he has some powers. But that particular department is totally non-functional.
Oh, wow.
So ultimately you are left with no other option but to register a criminal complaint. Now police has so many more jobs to do that they are not specialized in this field.
Agreed.
So day-to-day lives, if somebody is facing a problem, like if I am a coder, I have made some application. Now I do not have that much of reach like Microsoft and Google. They can manage all the resources.
Agreed.
But as far as the common man is concerned, if they do not have those resources whereby they can invoke the provisions of law, then it's just a theoretical framework.
Very interesting. So you think, so how long do you, I mean, so one, you think there's an acute need for trained manpower to identify the law and in the process draft the right legislation, right?
So yes, so I would say from 3 angles. Number one, those who are drafting the law, they need to be more aware about the latest trends. So the law that is drafted in early 2000s, is not relevant today.
Agreed.
So what are the updates that we are seeing on day-to-day basis or maybe month-to-month basis in the IT Act of India? That is a question. So good draftsmen, good legislatures who have the understanding of the law, understanding of information technology and law, that is required. Then mere drafting of the law is not sufficient. We have to have some people who can enforce it, for which we need to have a trained manpower. Now what is happening? Day in and day out, we get to hear the complaints like, if you are aware about Jamtara.
Of course, yes.
So there are places in India where people are doing no activity but to defraud the people. Now latest technique that tamari mamma no phone, your mom is calling, and then they connect you with a phone whereby
your wife.
No, there will be some OTP which is being delivered. So some fraudster is calling me. He says that your mom is unable to contact you and therefore I am just going to join her in the conference. And rather than joining the mom in the conference, they will join a call which is putting the OTP. And now the other person is able to listen to it and then they will defraud you by siphoning off the entire funds.
Wow.
Now the point is, suppose this fund has gone. If this fund has gone to some account in Bihar, then what is the coordination between Gujarat Police and Bihar Police?
Interesting.
What is the central framework that will govern? How shall you bring those wrongdoers to the justice?
True, and that's why Jamtaras of the world flourish, because nothing is...
So, the problem is here there is a constitutional challenge because policing is a state power. So, we have three concurrent list, state list and central list.
True.
Now, because policing is a part of a state list, center cannot enact a law unless for those areas connected with national security.
Agreed.
So, therefore, we have National Investigating Agency, NIA. But as far as this part is concerned, cyber fraud, if it is not considered to be an attack on the national security, there will be no national police force. And unless we have a national police force, we cannot implement, because crime is committed elsewhere, victim is elsewhere.
And that is what they use the whole...
so they are using this like loophole in the system. Loophole in the system. And for which we need some central legislation.
Very interesting. So coming of AI, I mean, because with of course IT, there's a lot of... So even in the education space, I'm assuming AI is really, really useful. I mean, if I understand the aspect of your even searching of old cases and entire database, referring to earlier, a very massive task using books and paper, has now gone brilliantly AI. How has that helped the profession overall?
Good servant but a bad master.
Oh, interesting. How do you say that?
So for example, this regularly happens with us. When I was young kid and my mom used to send me to buy some vegetables, I would do the mental maths. Acha, 750 grams of tomato and then 500 grams of potato. So this is the math and I am supposed to pay you X amount. And when I was in 4th or 5th standard, I used to go to buy sabji and I could do that mental math. Now I take up calculator, bhaiya kitna hua? And then I would do that math which I am not capable of doing right now. Tell me how many numbers you remember?
Negligible. Negligible.
Like 2 or 3 your nearest family members.
Absolutely.
So in those days we had mental math capacity which is gone today.
Agreed.
Now I apprehend that we have that good reading habit. If you see this library, of course not each and every page of this book we have read, but we have a habit that whenever some case comes, we go to the relevant section, we would read that section and then find out relevant provision of law.
Interesting.
Now if you say, tell me what is section 156 of CRPC, what are the various judgments on that? Okay, it's good. It will give you some preliminary overview of that provision of law. But then ultimately you have to know what is the exact provision of law. Straight away some AI tool is giving you a commentary and providing you the list of judgments.
Interesting.
And one more thing I would like to tell you.
Please.
Again, I am not disdaining AI because I think AI is highly used in our office. We are using it to maximum possible capacity. But at the same time, I am also talking about the drawbacks of AI. Because sometimes, see, law is a profession which is grounded profession. If I make one statement, it has to be founded on some real facts. Now, AI has one bad problem, that is hallucination. So if it doesn't know the answer, it's not fair enough to tell you that I don't know the answer. It will give you a hypothetical answer as if, and with that confidence that you believe that this is a perfect answer.
Interesting.
So some judges have, of course in a lower judiciary, they have lost their jobs because they cited some provisions of some judgments using AI without cross-verifying whether such judgment is in reality there or not.
Possible or not.
And at the same time, some lawyers in USA, they've lost, their licenses were suspended because they did loose pleadings based on AI.
Wow.
So AI can be useful.
And do lawyers know that this is actually possible? I mean, this kind of a...
So that is the point. See, it reduces your work. Just like calculator used to do, has done with our lives. It reduces our mental math problems. Okay. But at the same time, some level of cross-verification, some level of your own control. Because you say somebody gives you a problem, says, for example, legal notice, and you say that draft a counter to this without even verifying. Earlier, what we would do para-wise reading, then collect para-wise remarks, and then we would do our own drafting. Now, without doing that, if you put it into some AI tool and then say that, okay, do the drafting of this reply of this notice, and if it drafts the reply to the notice, you even do not know certain amendments are made which are false. What are going to be the consequences of the same?
Interesting. Because one of the things we do is when we do MOUs and initial basic level of agreement, we go to the AI tool and we ask them and they come out with it. So there's been a fair amount of layman understanding.
So that is what I'm saying. That's a good beginning.
True.
But then you have to read each clause word by word. You have to see the overall meaning of that clause into the entire agreement or entire draft of a petition. It should not so happen that one sentence written somewhere is affecting other pleadings of your draft.
Agreed.
So that is the reason why human verification is very much important. One more thing, because you said this,
please.
There is a context limit. So AI is not capable of giving you lengthy answers. For example, of 100 pages, if I'm a novelist, I think that now I do not want to do creative imagination. I am having a creative block. Let me ask AI to write a novel for me. Now AI is not capable of drafting 100 pages novel. Same way, let's say if I were to draft a petition, generally it is having the length of 25-30 pages. So context limit of AI is not that very much.
Interesting.
So for example, if you say that draft this facts for me, then it has drafted 5 paragraphs. So it may be consistent for those 5 paragraphs. But then remaining 5 paragraphs which you are drafting, it has lost the context and there may be some inconsistencies between the initial 5 paragraphs and next 5 paragraphs.
Wow. And that is where the need for a lawyer to be actually aware and correct. Oh, interesting.
So you use it if you want to use it, but then do some cross verification.
So, brilliant. So you're saying use it to get the basic stuff in place and then of course use your brain to get the cross verification and ensure that you're inherent. So on the education front, so you think where does this, how does the education need to evolve vis-a-vis, like when you did your bachelor's and master's, I'm assuming IT wasn't really as aggressively part of it. Now if it is, then what are changes that you expect the education system to have? So if you have interns coming in, how prepared you want them to be? What are the basics that you want them to be prepared with?
I have my own doubts whether I would encourage the use of AI in education. At the same time, I'm not negative about it. Let's be very clear. Why? Because there is, I give you one example. In Sanskrit, we have that Guru Brahma Guru Shobham. That shloka is there. Why? Because we have some importance of a guru.
Very much.
Okay.
Very much.
Now that method of knowledge transmission, if you don't know any answer, you would go to AI. Now, because of that, the utility of the knowledge, actual knowledge and understanding diminishes.
Great.
You do not feel a need to understand something because it's handy. Your teacher, your guru is not handy. Whenever he is imparting the knowledge, it is a time to be focused and you have to learn that. But suppose it is AI, I believe that there will be a tendency amongst the students not to learn by heart, but to ask to the AI whenever they are stuck up. So the knowledge will be in bits and pieces, fragmented, and it will be like a patchwork rather than a holistic piece of knowledge.
So that you're giving me the general sense of the youngsters that are today. That's the reality. Correct. So when I teach at colleges, one of the things I do is I give them the answers from AI and tell them to prepare the question for me. That's the way I kind of take them out of take the trick out of their book. So in that scenario, where do you think the educational institutes have to improvise to somewhere to force them to not look at AI and try and get, is the examination system needs to improve? What needs to happen?
What I believe is overall in Indian educational space, there is lesser amount of practical work that we do, field work that we do. So more and more fieldwork we do, we are required to, I believe we would be required, if we are students, we would be required to understand the requirement of a field rather than some theoretical requirement.
Agreed.
So if there is an educational, for example, let's talk about the prisoners' rights. If you say that give me 10 recommendations to improve the prison conditions, what are various commissions set up for that? And provide me key recommendations. In 2 minutes on prison reforms, you will have one article written. Okay. But what is that level of empathy that a student will be able to cultivate unless he visits the prison? He understands the situation.
Agreed.
And that way for everything. For corporate, if you are required to draft a contract, go to the corporates, do some internship, understand what are the real life challenges.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
So for that, government is also bringing that apprentice policy.
Like the CAs, they have that.
Yeah. So that way, like see, in legal field, we have that tradition of having the interns. But I believe that in every sector, not only this, because when you are asking a question about education sector, maybe you are specific about education in the field of law.
Right now. That's right.
But if we talk about even a larger context, then every field requires field work and learning from the practical experiences.
Actually.
That is lacking.
In a way, if you look at it, even MBBS has 6 months of rural apprenticeships happening in. And I know what you're saying, and I think that's a brilliant suggestion, because that is where I guess they'll understand the real life problems in the process. They'll start empathizing.
And somewhere if IT is going wrong, then they would be immediately corrected.
Agreed.
Otherwise, what will happen if I have to submit my thesis to a professor? I write a AI generated thesis. We would be putting more computational power to identify whether it is AI generated content or not. But what would be the true addition
Agreed.
to students' knowledge, students' learning? That will be a question.
Interesting. Great. I think this is some anything on the last word for students for tomorrow. Anything that you feel as a student you could have done better and the students can do now?
I would say artificial intelligence or say technology is the need of the time. So there is no question of running away from it. But I would say that have that habit whereby suppose you are off grid one day, for only one day you are off grid and you have to do some work. Then your ability to research, your ability to draft, your ability to plead before the courtroom, that should not go. With one last words I would like to give my original learning, where there were volumes of AIR and SCC, and when one research topic is given by our senior, we would search all AIR volumes from 1951 up to 2001, 2002, all these volumes. We would go and we would try to identify, okay, these are the case laws. Then that was digitized. Folio viewer used to be the software, very basic and earliest to primitive.
I've heard of that.
That was there.
I've heard of this.
So we started doing the keyword based research, because as a lawyer you know what are the keywords you are going to find out, and then these AI based tools are there. But if one day you are off grid, you should be able to refer to those physical volumes of the legal text. You should be able to based on that you should be able to draft and thereafter even submit before the courtroom.
Very interesting. And that is where I think the examination also kind of can play a role of actually showing them how to do it or getting them to do it.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Aditya. Thank you very much for having talked to us.